I'm your host, Effie Pilarinu, and today I have a special guest, Iris Welten. Welcome, Iris.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Me too. Iris, we met very recently here in Switzerland in a very special setting, I would say, which is a landmark location in Caux, just above Montreux. And this is a hotel that is from the, I think, 1900s, and now is a center for conferences and meetings, only focused in change and innovation. Governments and, even the UN holds meetings there, and it's all focused on that type of transformation. So we met in this atmosphere, and Iris is not only a professional that has a lot of experience in different industries. We'll have the opportunity to hear from her. She is a woman that is a board member and a chair, so definitely an inspiration for other women, and owner of the Welten and Welten practice, which is focused on responsible leadership, and we'll be talking about that. So Iris, I know I haven't covered your background and your journey, and we will be talking about your transformation journey too. So tell us a little bit about the type of companies that you've worked with, where have you worked, and how has your career evolved, as today you are, if I understand correctly, devoted to this practice of responsible leadership, and we'll be talking about that. So tell us about your professional journey.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. And yes, it's my pleasure, because it's a very unusual way, I can say that much. I went a very steep career path, meaning after my studies in Munich, I went immediately to Hong Kong and lived and worked in Hong Kong for Adidas. Then I went to New York, lived and worked there for Deutsche Telekom. So I was a vice president there, moved back to Switzerland. And in Switzerland, I was in the extended board of Clariant, is a stock exchange listed corporation, and then to Swiss Life, is also a stock exchange listed corporation, moving then on to the final career path of being a CEO. So I was responsible for the whole part of northwestern Switzerland for the economic development. So I was basically taking care about foreign companies coming to Switzerland and helping them with, the whole range. So very exciting. And then I stepped out of all of this business life, being employed also in high positions 7 years ago, to become independent, really independent. And I took the opportunity to transform myself, transform my whole life. So I was super successful. I very wealthy. I earned tons of money. So everything was cool, but I was not happy. So it was not a happy life. I was not fulfilled from inside with this career. I was always looking for recognition from the outside. And I realized this, and then I changed my life and built then Welten and Welten AG and another company. And since then, I'm only doing what my heart is really going forward to, helping other people to transform as deeply as I transformed myself to a happier life without any conflicts.
So is your, are you spending your energy as a personal coach? Is it with people in business or any type of person? Where is most of your focus or your clients these days?
So the most of the clients come also from the executive area. meaning I have CEOs from stock exchange listed corporations as clients. I have in hospitals leaders who are leading whole departments, so chef arts, so chief doctors. And then sometimes when you talk to these people, then they get so excited by the transformation that they like to have this transformation in their whole corporation. So that's how it comes that I transform like whole departments with over 200 people. And then, of course, they talk maybe about their relationships. And then I started to coach also couples. Or they know somebody in the family who needs some help. So people come to me who find to me. But mostly it's executives people or people who have their own enterprises, because we talk the same language, what they need, and I know what they're going through. So
of course you can relate to them. And you know, I always used to think when I was working on Wall Street in the 90s, the first part of my career was spent on Wall Street, and I always thought, okay, you know, the corporate world in general is very, you know, high-paced, competitive, pressured. And of course, at the time I was not at the high position. I was, you know, started at an entry position and was going up, but still I could sense that, and I always perceived that Wall Street was even faster than any other industry. And I'm sure that it is the case today. Maybe tech companies are equally, you know, very sort of pressuring people and teams and so on. So are you working with companies that are more, I would say, in the innovation space? In general, I feel that over the last at least 5 years, anybody that is in innovation directly or is transforming is definitely in a stressful place, because it's not easy. Like, it's not easy to change as an individual. It's not easy to change a company. So I'd love to hear from you how you approach these situations from the angle of, you know, companies or groups or leaders that you work with that have this goal of digital transformation, whatever it means for them. How do you connect and approach this? Because digital transformation at some level, of course, is about technology.
Yes.
But we all understand that the hurdles, that the difficulties are cultural, are mindset, are you know, people that feel threatened, that don't have the skills, don't have the psychological security, and all these complex issues. How do you approach these?
That's a very good introduction, because that's the point. So I work with all kinds of different companies. Also, I work with large hospitals. So different industries. I also am very familiar with artificial intelligence corporations. So I'm also a board member of several companies. So I look from a strategic level at these things. And it's exactly what you said. It's about the culture, it's about the people. So let me put it in a concrete example, which I just finished to transform a 200 people department. So, for example, if you have somebody who is a perfectionist in the team, and this perfectionist is always complaining, you know, oh, it's I have too much work, it's too much heavy on my shoulders, I cannot manage this, etc. So even if you give this person 1 day off, same payment, you give him one day off, this person will still complain that he has too much on his shoulders, or she, because she or he is a perfectionist. So he will live, or this person will live as perfectionist, then no longer in work, or in work and at home. So the behavioral pattern of this person will not be lost, even if you give more freedom, more money, more time, it's still there. And to be very precise, especially when I work with people together in the technology area, I meet a lot of people who are hyper rationals. So meaning they're very smart people, super analytical, and very bright and smart people. But the emotional intelligence is mostly not the strongest part of them. There are other parts which are very strong, which is, for example, their knowledge, their possibility to find innovation. But then the problem is to get the people excited about it and get them really working for it, because therefore you need emotional intelligence. If you ask, there was a big McKinsey study, what employees want, and employees want from a boss 10 of 10 attributes is emotional intelligence and not know-how. So then you have this hyper-rational people, and they feel comfortable in their rational environment when they can explain things, etc. What it does to other people is that they feel kind of small, you know, because they know it better, they really know it better, but you make them feel small. And somebody who has not a lot of self-worth will be easily kind of made insecure, or they're even afraid of this person because this person knows always everything better. So that is really hindering innovation. So if you have fear, and this is a proven research, if people have fear in their work, innovation is not going to happen. And what I do, I then start to work with this person. For example, with a team of the board, or with a team of the executive board or management board. And let's take this example of a hyper-rational, because I worked with a very large IT leader also of a large bank, and it transformed his whole life. Because the thing is, a hyper-rational person needs to know why he became a hyper-rational. And that's the key to it. And mostly there's one of these attributes in their childhood which happened, and this is where the experience then forms your neuronal patterns. Meaning, for example, that they have had some emotional turmoil in their childhood, or their only sense of security in their childhood was their intellect, you know, and this way they could gain attention. They could maybe gain some love, which they didn't get. Yeah. And they learned as a survival mechanism in their childhood, okay, well, intellect helps, it gives me security, it gives attention, it, you know, if it's emotional turmoil, I can get a safe place within know-how. And this is a strength per se, it's really a strength, deep insights, know-how, very innovative people. It becomes a weakness if it kind of sabotages you. So the neuronal patterns are so deep that the deep motivation is out of negativity rather than out of a positive mindset. And with this kind of approaches, I work with the people. So changing the neuronal patterns, which has been established in childhood and are like really high race, and changing them by, first of all, putting into awareness why they are, how they are, and then changing with simple exercises the way how the brain is functioning, and helping via the body also to change this. And this is amazing. For example, this one person I mentioned, this very large heading up an IT department, after 7 weeks, he said it transformed his whole life. So so it's very deep, and this is important, because if this behavior doesn't change, the whole, you know, difficulties, the conflicts, the performance doesn't change. It's all about people. You can be as innovative as you want. If the people don't change, the innovation and the performance is not changing. So looking at the whole department, for example, the performance increased over 30%, so 30% plus sales after the department went through. Also, 80% less conflicts, 80% feeling happier, 75% feeling increase of better work-life balance. So it's an increase. So it's not percentage of people, so it's an increase. So it's very, very high. And this is what matters. So despite the fact that the organizations stayed the same, the bosses stayed the same, the work stayed the same, everything stayed the same. But because of the mindset change and the neuronal patterns change and what sabotaged them, everything changed, the whole dynamic. And this is when transformation really happens and when performance increases like this.
It's just amazing.
Yes.
You're describing, shall I call it the ripple effects of the transformation of one person. I mean, I'm trying to think of the best analogy. Is it, like in, I don't know, water or in a lake or something, and you're changing, I don't know, one drop, and then everything changes. It's just mind-boggling. And I must admit, Iris, that when you were describing this type of persona, right, I was like, okay, maybe is she talking about me or so many other people that I know? And it's, I think, especially in innovation and technology, which today is basically very intertwined, there's a lot of that type of personality and facade and behavioral patterns. And especially when you said how the intellect has served the person, I can relate to that very much, because I am very much aware that my mind has served me very well in my professional career, and it's like, if you have 2 or 3 children, the one that does well continues to do well because you encourage that child to continue that great performance, and you focus on that, on their accomplishments, and they have more accomplishments. And the other children that you might have started focusing on their weakness, you sort of focus on their weakness, and it kind of stays stale, right? It's just mind-boggling how you are taking a very different approach. When I saw that you are into responsible leadership, I was thinking something completely different. I was thinking about leadership that is focused on how to make sure that the governance of the company is transparent, the practices are aligned with, let's say, climate and environmental issues, and not only on profits and so on. But you are really going at the infrastructure level.
Yes, at the infrastructure level of the brains of the people in the company, basically. Yeah, and one thing it's important. You mentioned one drop changes everything. So it's always important that the top is starting with this process, and then it's introduced in the company. Important is also, or nevertheless, let's put it this way, that everybody participates. So what I do is I do the in-depth program with the management board, and then with the leaders of the different departments and the employees. We kind of do the awareness setting about what's sabotaging them in life with workshops. And then the people who would like to go through a coaching program, they can choose. It's always like, you can, but you don't have to, because it still should be everybody's choice and not being forced. So it's a kind of starting from the top and then going like a wave throughout the department or the company. That's a very, very important. And regarding the approach, yes, it is super different. And it has also to do with my own experience. When I was at Clariant or at Swiss Life is one of the leading insurance companies in Europe, a pension insurance company. I had a lot of coachings. You have these workshops, you have all these great people and things they are available. And we always went in there and yeah, super cool. And we went out and nothing changed. So after 2, 3, 4 weeks, still the same patterns, still the same behaviors, still the same people complaining. Nothing really had changed. Still the same feeling inside myself, not being really happy or satisfied, despite I deliver excellent results. But walking home and feeling, oh, I'm actually feeling empty inside. I don't feel happy inside. And this is why this approach is so different, because it's changing it's a change for the person to find back to their strengths and not getting sabotaged by their strengths, so that it's too much. And then there happens a complete change of how people interact. And what's important there, for example, I work also a lot with executive teams, and they have a super happy, good, conflict-free life if they are all the same kind of types. Let's take a very extreme example. You have an executive team of 3 hyper-rationals, which I mentioned before. So they understand each other. They know, they're super. They come along, fantastic. All is great, but they have a lot of difficulties with their team members, with people below them, because they are hyper-rational. So they so much in their world that they don't understand. Especially I see this a lot in artificial intelligence companies, for example, I worked with, that they don't understand, if somebody is different. They don't have the empathy, they don't have the intuition for it, because their know-how is what works really good, but not the heart, not the empathy, not the intuition. It needs to be explained. That's it. So there are a lot of conflicts, and they can also not engage people to grow into their highest potential, because the employers are looking, to stay with this example, for emotional intelligence from their leaders. No, it's not there. It's know-how. It's experience. This is not what the employees are looking for. And then the performance lacks, then the innovation lacks, then from the idea to implementation lacks. And this is where the problems are coming. So this is why I work then with the executive team and learn them, for example, to go into empathy, to go out of the comfort zone of know-how. This is probably the hardest step for them. And learning with different tools to change, back to their strengths and using only their strengths. And then all of a sudden, they learn how to be empathic, and it's a different approach how they treat the employees. And the employees also learn, okay, how does a hyper-rational act? How does he think? So it's not personally. If he is not empathic, but he is rather in a competition on a rational level with me, it's not meant personally. It's if I'm, for example, let's take also another extreme. If I'm an avoider, let's put it this way, if I'm a person in the team who avoids conflicts, who feels uncomfortable, this person doesn't go into a conflict with the boss. So always saying yes, inside being angry, and then in the worst case saying goodbye to the company after a time. Also, it might be a very valuable person. So this person also needs to learn, okay, why do I not go in conflicts? Why do I feel uncomfortable to talk and discuss, have a discussion with my boss? So this person also needs to learn not to avoiding conflicts and not having a list in front of them, you know, avoiding tasks, etc. And so it's on both sides, work is necessary.
Very, very interesting. I would have expected that these types of problems would be more problems in industries that are service industries, you know, hospitality or whatever, but I wouldn't have expected in an artificial intelligence company, because there I would imagine everybody's, you know, engineering minded, because what you describe is really an engineering mind,
Yes.
you know, overall mindset. But I guess, you know, the experience that you're sharing with us proves that it's, you know, managerial skills are really a byproduct or a derivative of what's going on internally, and not, you know, our technical or knowledge skills.
Absolutely.
How to manage people, and I guess, and all of what you said can be directly translated in our personal and social life. This is the beauty that I can imagine comes out of this. It's like with one stone, two birds. For many people. Iris, I also saw that you teach at the university corporate governance. Is that a very traditional approach? Has that changed after your transformation, or are you in the textbook that I was taught in business school, or what is taught today? I'm not sure that it has changed anyway. How is that?
Yeah. Before I answer the question, very interesting point you're making here. One important thing is you are absolutely right. One would think in an AI company, it is all kind of hyper rationals, you know, hyperachiever type of things. Yes, nevertheless, they have also other attributes. So one might be a hyperachiever, a hyper rational kind of type. The other person might be a hyperachiever plus an avoider tendency or a victim tendency. So they still have different personalities, and this is when the conflict comes. They understand maybe on the intellectual level each other, but then if there's also a person in your team who always is the victim, who is always the victim of everything, woof, this really clashes, especially with people who are hyper rationalists or who are hyperachievers. They don't understand each other. So a perfect team exists of team members with all kind of different attributes who are as diverse as possible, high potential for conflicts, but if they work on themselves and understand themselves, is a high performing team. So this is why I get with all the corporations I work to a performance increase, either growth or sales of over 30%. And this is unmatched because they're changing. That's it. Regarding corporate governance, no, this is unfortunately not a. I'm very a little bit yeah. It's sad. Yeah. No, it's not a concept introduced. The highest concept introduced in this kind of direction is ethics. So on a European level, they talk a lot about in terms of responsible leadership, ethics that is introduced, but that's it. It's not so much on a personal level. It's more the teaching books. What is responsible leadership? What does it mean? Which you can read everywhere. Yeah. Not the change of people, not the change of mindset. And the answer, I just talked to a very famous professor, it was about 1 week ago, because we were talking about workshops for board members, for international board members. So learning them a little bit, you know, to take a different view. But the answer I always get is they don't get involved on an operational level. It's only on a strategic level. So they're not really interested because it's none of their business. This is a lot of times the answer I get, which is, I think, yeah, it's an answer which I somehow cannot understand, because as a board, you're also responsible at the end of the day that the strategy is implemented, that the performance is good from the company. So you cannot just tell, okay, look, I don't get involved in the
daily
operating exactly, and I'm looking on a strategic level, and that we as a board function, okay. But I think you also need to help the management to change if there is not the growth expected going forward, the performance, or if there are a lot of conflicts. So these are, I have a different view in it, but it's not really a concept yet. No.
Interesting. Iris, before we close, I wanted to ask you about women
Yes.
business, women in your work, your previous work, you know, the traditional business, and now that you are from the outside, transforming people, teams, and companies. How do you see women? Has there been change? Do you have hope? You spoke about diversity before, you know, in the sense of the different attributes and behaviors. Share some insights, please.
Yes, I thank you very much for this wonderful question. I share my own experience. When I started my career, I was very young. So when I was in New York, which was then the really start of the career, I was 28. And I had to work always harder. And also when I talk to other executive women in my kind of age, they had to work harder for their achievements. So it was always a very tough way. And you had to be tough as a woman. So I adapted. I'm talking now personally, and I know a lot of executive women or friends I have sharing this view. Also, some might say, oops, no. But you also become very masculine from the type of behavioral settings in the corporate environment. So you lose really the soft side as a woman.
Yep.
In business, the higher you go up. And this is, fortunately, this is changing now. So I'm very happy about this, that there is a call for more women. They should be same qualified. I'm not a friend of a quota woman. I'm not a friend of, because the qualification should be there. Otherwise, there will never be an acceptance. So then it doesn't make sense. You know, it's just somebody who is in there because of the quota, but not because she knows a lot. But I'm happy that it's welcome. Women are welcome with all their attributes, with all what they can deliver. And there are enough research that if you have women in a management board or an executive board, the performance is better. There is tons of research that the performance is better because of the diversity. So this is a very, very cool. And I would really say to all women, go out there, believe in your strengths, believe in all you can deliver, and you can do it. It's just a matter of focus and believing in yourself and your self-worth. And I'm also a member of the top 100 potential board members, or it's a board member club. It's a female board member club here in Switzerland, where the top 100 women are in, so board member women. And that's the same. It's changing now. At the beginning, it was very slow. You know, there were almost nobody was asked to come in boards, and this is changing now too. So this is really cool.
Do you find in your work that it is easier to work with women, you know, compared to men, or could you say that? I mean, maybe the sample is small, and you can't draw a conclusion. Is it the case?
I will be very honest, and some now will not like me for being honest, but I will be. I am the truth.
Let me tell you, my women bosses, and again, I'm talking about the 90s, and I'm talking about New York, Wall Street. They were worse for me as an employee compared to men. I had more men bosses that with whom I could have a very honest discussion.
Yes.
And they had an honest discussion. I will never forget my first boss at Salomon Brothers, of all places, with a very sort of cutting edge, macho culture. And he did tell me during pay, look, I've paid the people and teams for 10 years. I must tell you that women are not equally paid, and this is the reality. And I appreciated that, his honesty. And I remember another boss at the Bankers Trust with whom I felt comfortable to cry, to really cry, because I felt I had some issues with a trader and so on. And then I had two female bosses. I mean, they were horrible. Their empathy levels were just, zero or below zero.
That's the point. That's the point. Yeah.
So I interrupted you, please.
No, but that's exactly. So I can skip this part. So there are two answers to this one. There are better, and I'm sorry for all the men who are listening now. So I love to work with women because they are really, really good, because they have to go this extra mile. So in terms of performance, it's top. It's really top. In terms of having an easy life, having a comfortable life, having no conflicts, it's men are much easier. Men, it's much more easygoing, forgiving, very, what matters in life. This is much cooler with men. So I apologize to women, but it has a lot to do with this man's attribute women took on to be successful in this environment. So they're losing the empathy, they're losing all this, what makes a woman. So if they allowed themselves to be a vulnerable woman with a big heart and very empathic, with this super high performance, I mean, wow, this is wow, that nobody else has a chance there. And so
this is extremely interesting, these perspectives. And as you said, I see in my domain of finance so much evidence about the strengths of women, be it in venture capital, be it in investments, just everywhere, in relationships, or companies and ventures that are focused in building communities, digital communities. And now, in the area of blockchain, where we have this shift to creating digital communities and bringing people together in the virtual world. Again, women have these capabilities, but yet we are in that intermediate stage where a lot of us are trained in the first, 10 years or 20 years of our career differently. And we need to increase our awareness and use our gifts at the end of the day. I think we women suffer from this more than men, of not using our gifts.
Absolutely. Yeah, and underestimating one's own strengths, and always being a multitasker with all these responsibilities, in the family, in the work. And there are some studies also that if you do multitasking, your brain works like you have drunken a couple of glasses of wine. So this is one important step. For example, I also introduce, when I work with women, stop the multitasking, because especially with hyperachievers, they multitask a lot. But at the end, they are less effective than if they focus one task after the other task, because their brain is working like they have drunken a lot of glasses of wine. And this is important to
I've
know.
never heard that.
Ah, yes.
So at the end of the day, if we are taking count of what we did, we should add the actual glasses of wine plus the multitasking, and then, you know, will be 2 or 3 bottles of wine, basically. On what you're telling me, that is really, really a great analogy for us to reflect. Iris, closing, I'd like to ask you, what are you reading these days? What books are you reading, or what inspires you? How do you move forward in your life?
I move forward by opening up myself more and more, and allowing myself to be vulnerable, and allowing myself to go by my intuition. I move forward by only doing what my heart is fulfilling me. So I drop everything else. So I only do what I really, really, really love to do. And the rest, I just said really hard cut. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. And I'm not willing for any, you know, fame or CEO position or whatever. Not being happy. So this is my past. And otherwise, I go forward in my life with a lot of trust. So I trust that the right things come into my life, which are good for my life. And I just follow the things which I really love to do in my life. And therefore, I get inspired by different people. So I listen a lot to speeches of people who have higher awarenesses or who made different experiences. So I'm not reading business books. I'm reading more books and listen to speeches and to people who are, you know, higher in their consciousness or in their awareness, let's put it this way, and who can share deep insights which you cannot, you know, learn, but you can listen from others and then maybe see it in your own life. And this is what's inspiring me. So I'm no longer doing anything which is not fulfilling me. Very, really tough. For example, I work also only 40%. That's it. So I don't take any more clients, 40%, no matter who's in front of me. I say, I'm sorry, I have then time. This time is over. Yeah. So 60% is.
So you have set the boundaries like you had never set before. This is what I'm hearing, and I'm repeating it so I can hear it and our audience can hear it. Setting boundaries in advance, not, you know, making decisions sort of when things come, you know, my way or our way. Really being very clear on what your boundaries are, following your intuition rather than your analytical mind, the saboteur that says, oh, you should do this because, you know, down the road recognition, or even now recognition, or you're going to miss this opportunity, you know, all that, that whispering, and how dare you, this should be an honor. and so on, all that, all those voices. And
maybe maybe one really important point that just came to my mind. There was a big interview and they asked Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, and they asked all these really who made a difference in the world with their corporations and their innovation. They asked them how they made the most important decisions in their life. Was it, you know, somebody else, the team? Was it an analysis? And they all said, independently interviewed, they all said the most important decisions they made out of their intuition, out of their feeling in themselves, in their belly. So that's very interesting. So I do apologize for interrupting you, but I think that's interesting.
That is extremely, you know, important to you know, connect as Jeff Bezos, you say, to connect these dots and see that it is that way, because as you said, these are people that, we are all sort of admire because of their business success and the way they've, impacted the world for the better or worse, but they've had a huge, long-lasting impact. And hearing it from all of them is just a great validation. Iris, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, the way you work and the way you impact the world. I am again delighted, and will share with our audience your links so they can follow you in what you share online, and hopefully be inspired by some of the issues that we discussed today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much that I was allowed to share. Merci.
Thank you.